listening to ProveText, a Glossa House podcast by Dr. T. Michael W. Halcomb, Dr. Fredrick J. Long, Dr. Mario Melendez, Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and J. M. Smith. Welcome and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to ProveText. I'm Michael Halcomb and I'm here with Fred Long, and we are discussing the second chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. We're doing this because it's Advent, Christmas season, and if you're preaching through Matthew, maybe this will give you something to think about or something to share. So if you're watching, I'm going to put Matthew 2 up here on the screen. We're going to move quickly through this episode because we're on a little bit of a time crunch. So forgive us if we're moving too fast, but I'm going to read the Greek. We're not really going to explain it here, but then we'll just talk about what's going on. So we're at verse 9. We're going to try to get through verse 12 in this episode. So it sounds this way in Greek. Iuda accusandes tu Vasileos, eporrevtesa, ke idu o aster on idon in de Anatole, pro eien autus, eos athon, estate apano uento pedion. So, Fred, what are you seeing here that you want to draw our attention to?
Yeah, so to translate this, I see the next step in the argument or the narrative, the de there marks the next step. We're alternating between agents. So the ide is now marking the agency of the Magi. So you had Herod calling them in verse 7, and then verse 8 sending them out. And then they, having heard the king, went, and behold, the star, which they saw in the east. So there's the evidence that in the east is referring to where they saw. The star which they saw in the east was leading them or be going before them in perfective aspect. Until coming, it stood above where the child was. So there's a lot of movement going on here, a lot of going, coming, sending, going, like repeatedly, sending, going. So even the star is going. And so what did that look like? I think it might have been over the course of several days that as the new horizon of the night sky, the planet and the star was progressing in a certain way, and it was pointing them to where the child was, which is Bethlehem. Yeah.
Yeah, I there's a popular view out there, and I don't hold this view. Will Varner is one that has really espoused it, and I've challenged him hard on this, and I think he's 100% wrong. But he's been espousing this view that the Oaster, the star, is actually an angelic figure, not a real star. Mm-hmm. And I know others hold that view too, but I don't buy that or subscribe to that for a second. So he tries to promote this view that in Judaism, ancient Judaism, stars were often linked with angelic entities, celestial entities, but I'm not buying it, at least not for this story. I don't think that's what's happening.
Yeah. So I think it's a astronomical event. There's a DVD by was it a doctor who started to research this, and I think it's called The Star of Bethlehem DVD. I don't know if you can find it. Maybe I'll post it, the link to it. But it's intriguing. It's intriguing. The way that he explains how it moves is fitting with what they're describing. It's not like directly moving. It's over the course of the evening. The planets, and are changing depending on which night, and it's pointing towards a location. And so the timing of this, we tend to read this as if it's instantaneously taking place, or looking up and it's like, oh, it's moving now over to that way. But this could be taking place over a series of days for them to track where it's actually leading them. So it is pointing them stationary above where the child was.
Yeah. The next verse, 2:10 says, "Y donde de tonastera, echarisan charan megalin spodra." I love this because immediately this is showing me a contrast.
Mhm.
It takes my mind right back to a
Yeah.
few verses ago where Herod, where's it at? He was described as terrasso. There it is,
Mhm.
etarachte.
Yeah.
And so you have this acoustic sort of parallel going on or contrast with 2:3 etarachte, and here in 2:10 you have echarisan, and it's actually haran. Um, yeah, so I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is called a cognate accusative when you have a direct object that has the same root as the main verb, as a direct object. So they rejoiced, a joy, and that joy is modified by an adjective, megalane, which makes it, a great joy. And if as if that's not strong enough of an emphasis, then you have this really interesting adverb, svodra, uh, exceedingly.
Yes.
So you're really, there's really a lot of stress on the joy,
Yeah.
and that joy comes from seeing the star. So in their mind, there's like a realization of what they set out to do, right? So they came from the east. In the east, they saw the star. They saw it in the constellations, and their reading of portends, they're recognizing something significant is happening here. They go, they get caught up in this intrigue. They're being attempted to be instrumentalized, and yet for them, it's just a matter of simply, what is the star pointing us to? And it gave them great joy to see it,
Uh-huh.
and to be at this point, where they can simply do what they want to do, is find out where is this child born, so that we can worship, we can pay homage to this king. Yeah.
Well, the next verse 11 is kind of lengthy in Greek. Que elthon desis ten yukian idon to pedion meta Marias tes metros aptu, que pesondes pros kunesan apto, que anuxandes tus desavrus avton pros enekan apto dora, cruson que Livanon, que Smyrnan.
Hmm. Yeah. And coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. So Mary is given name and described as his mother, and falling. So here we get the kind of prostration, the kind of homage that's being paid is a complete kneeling down and falling. They gave homage to him, and opening up their treasures, their store treasures, their treasure cases, whatever. They offered to him gifts. And then we have 3 items listed in apposition explaining what those gifts entailed. 3 things in a list: gold and frankincense and myrrh. And so this proves that since they had treasures of gold and 3 different gifts, that there were 3 kings. This is the evidence that Michael is completely wrong, that
Right.
these are not simply magi; these are royal
Wow.
figures, who,
Wow.
and 3 of them, because 3 gifts are specified,
Right.
and they had treasures which only kings really have.
Right.
So this is, part of the line of reasoning. I'm being facetious for those who are listening and think I'm being serious, because I'm often serious. So when I joke, I throw people off a little bit. Yeah, so that's why they think there's 3 of them, because there's 3 different gifts listed, but that doesn't follow necessarily.
Yeah. One
And they're
person could
certainly
have
not
all 3 gifts.
kings, because they're they're called magi.
And there were female magi too. We don't know that they were all males.
Mm.
So that's also interesting to think about.
Yeah. My
Um,
wife just put frankincense on a cup that I
nice.
got. Actually, I was sanding some boards for a shelf with my orbital sander, and I nicked my thumb, and it didn't really hurt, but I looked down, I'm like, okay, there's red, and then I got to white tissue. It was kind of deep fascia
Wow.
tissue.
All
But
right.
yeah, she put frankincense on it. It heals it up. Yeah, it's a
Nice.
medicinal.
Yeah, so we don't know that there were three of them. We don't know that they were all male, and we definitely know they weren't kings. One
Yeah,
person could have had all three of these gifts.
yeah.
And then church history, right? Has even named these Malchus, and is that right? There's like two others. I don't know, but they've
I
all
don't know.
been given names in church
I don't
history.
believe in that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I also want to point out here too, very importantly, Elthones Easton Ukian. They came to the house. This was
Yeah.
not at a cave,
Yeah.
not born at a cave, and it's not an inn. Right? This is the family house. Ukian. So that's
Oh, it's not
very,
an
very
inn.
important.
It's not an inn. Yeah, I was going to ask you, have you seen this kind of structure? How would you describe it to people?
What basically just a
Lean-to or?
simple like Palestinian house where you have an upper level, and a lot of times it would be a staircase going around to the roof. They would sleep out on the roof at this time of year because it's cooler sometimes, or during the summer. But um, if they were sleeping inside, the main room would have been, you would have had an upper room, um, which we read about later in the Gospels, where they go into the upper
Mm.
room and have a meal. But then you have the room downstairs, and at night they would bring the animals in, so they weren't stolen, and that's why you have a trough or a manger in there. And there was, by the time they got to the family house, the upstairs was already full, and so they stayed downstairs. And this is why Jesus was laid in a trough or a manger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They would have
Yeah.
never been turned away by. It would have been a major act of shame to go to their hometown, and the family to turn away a pregnant woman. One. And
Yeah.
if they had just gone to an inn instead, it would have been a major act of shame on Mary and Joseph's behalf to not go to the family home, especially while pregnant, and instead go to an inn.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's never been an inn found in Bethlehem archaeologically. So
Mm.
there's all kinds of things that speak against the idea of a cave or an inn. This
Yeah.
was a family home, and there just
Yeah.
wasn't room in the upstairs room, so they stayed in the downstairs room where the animals were.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Very helpful. But how about bring us home for verse 12?
Okay. All right. So verse 12, it's a long word. Let me scroll up here. Ke crematistendes kat ona me anakamse pros eroden viales odu anachoresan isten choranavton.
All right. Yeah. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, through another road, they returned to their country. Yeah. It's very interesting. The word warning, krematis thentes, in the plural, when this word is in the plural, this verb, it means receive an answer or warning of divine warnings and revelations. So this can be like revelatory, like oracles, as of oracle. So this is definitely not just simply a warning, but like recognizably using a word that this is a divine word. And we
Right.
know that too because it says in a dream, but still it's it's different words that could be translated warning, but this one is really talking about a kind of a divine word, an oracle of such. So God is speaking to them. I mean, these dudes, maybe gals included, I mean, they were on a quest. They were inspired in some way to find this king and give him homage. I mean, it's really remarkable. So God is with them. God works with people who aren't with us necessarily. The gospel goes ahead to other people. People have encounters with God, and so when we go to places, we need to recognize where they're working. And so these guys from the East, they were walking with the Lord in some real sense, and He was using them to point the way to where the king was, and they obeyed, they followed, and they were rewarded and had this deep joy. And so God warns them not to go back to Herod, and they obeyed. They went back another way, through another way. They went back to their land. So they avoided the whole issue. So Herod was trying to instrumentalize them, use them for his own aims and purposes, lying to them, and they're like, we're not going to take part in that. And I think that's an important message to us, when we're in positions to be instrumentalized in a way that is not honoring to God. So whenever that might be. So in this case, they're like, we're taking no part in that. And so God warned them. Yep.
Excellent. Wow. Well, good stuff. Hopefully didn't explode the Christmas narrative for you too bad. And we tend to read this as if it's all like one day, right? But this is happening over probably a period of days, if not weeks or months. I don't know. Kind of interesting. But we'll stop there. Do you got a parting shot for us?
Yeah, I was looking at Hans Kung, Catholic theologian. He says, the face that is God showed in Jesus, is really his true and single face. So that's the face we have to look at. And I guess I would say that Jesus looked intently at God's face and showed that face to us. And we get to look intently on Jesus's face and as like in a mirror and be transformed. And that's really the beauty of this Advent season, is we can anticipate the coming of God as King in the person of Jesus and be transformed by the wonder of it, the humility of it, the wonder of it. And hopefully we can be joyful, like really, really joyful, like the Magi were. Thanks, Michael, for your guidance and leading us in proper pronunciation and historical considerations. You're fortunate to have your people are fortunate to have you as a preacher, teacher to guide them. And so I know you give them good content, but it comes out of careful, close reading of the text. Always fun to read scripture with you. I always learn a lot.
Thanks, man. Same. Appreciate that. Thanks to everybody for supporting the podcast and watching and listening. Hoping it's a great Advent and Christmas season, Adventide and Christmastide seasons for you all. May be blessed, and we'll see you next time. We hope that helps.
Take care.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.